What's up, guys? Messenger of the Cross, Pulse Point Media, and we are just driving right now, and I'm just showing you all the white and red cars that seem to surround me. I'm always going to have a white car or a red car get in front of me or behind me. I just left a parking lot and I am driving. We'll see how long it takes. Right now, white car behind me, you see that? Just pulled in, did a U-turn, and now he's right behind me. So I'm gonna take a little detour here, dip out from these folks. We don't have to wait in line, homeboys. All right, guys, I'm trying to be inconspicuous filming. I got my phone, and I'm just filming on my phone. But it is wild what they do. Again, red truck just coming around the corner here. This is all neural remote monitoring, where they know what you're going to do, where you're going to be before you even get there. We are talking about a space fence that is over all of us, basically electromagnetic waves in which they run worldwide surveillance on all of us. Again, I just turned out onto this road, got a white truck again behind me, which is a different truck than the one that was behind me. But you'll notice just they use the plausible deniability and follow you and run picket and box surveillance on you. And they hate when you're filming. You'll always see a white and red car paired together like this. And of course, it just so happens that I have to be next to it. Just the timing of it is so odd, you know. But I'm always going to have a white or red car behind me or in front of me or near me, and then it escalates into coordinated, organized vehicular harassment using their car as a weapon. It ain't no joke. And I can't tell you guys how many times they've tried to run into me, hit me in parking lots when I come out of the store, hit me when I'm driving. No fault of my own, 9 times in 1 year, no fault of my own. I've got the insurance records to prove it. But yeah, they would just run their car into me, like, you know, look over at me and smirk at me and give me the duper's delight smirk. I'm gonna roll my window up so I can talk to you guys better. But yeah, it's just incredible the level of harassment that we as Americans put up with. There is no possible way that these crises could keep happening if they weren't intentional and deliberate. It is a breakdown game in which they can engage you with the plausible deniability in all that they do and just have a presence. Another red car. And again, paired with a white car, then the cops are up here. So you see now this cop is up here in front of me. I'm going to have to be careful filming. But he's about 1 car now ahead of me. The red car just is breaking off here. The white and red truck over here. So, sorry guys, I'm kind of like just, you can see the top of the police car, the car ahead. But that's another thing they do. I'll always have like cop cars rolling near me. Again, more street theater. Always, it's early in the morning, but yet there's fires all over the place. Yeah, right. I mean, it's just all a joke and a game of harassment, and the police are involved, and they want to, you know, make their presence known to you all the time by crossing your path and running intercepts on you all the time. But you can see in front of this car right here in front of me, we got a cop car and a city car right here. So, and they're always, you know, rolling with me, or always the cops with the red and white cars running coordinated box surveillance, picket surveillance, using their vehicles. They don't want you driving. We're going to get over because the cop's getting over. I'm just going to stay behind him. Because, you know, today they don't need RAS. You know, they don't need see now, that white car's moving out of the way. That one's going. Then we got this red one in front of us now. So they just keep switching it up, red, white. It doesn't matter if I pull off on the side of the road and then get going again in a matter of two minutes or less. I will have red and white cars in a box around me, controlling the flow of my driving, guys. Trying to intentionally cause accidents to be blamed on you guys. That's what they do. And as you well know, I've been saying for years, they're trying to take away our transportation, guys. It is a zero growth policy run by the UN and the Sustainable Development Goals. All corporations and companies have to go along with the devaluation process of dependency as they make junk and sell it for high prices. And welcome to communism, because they lessen the quality of the services they provide to you and pretend like it's this big utopia that we're all going to just have equal share. But this is the biggest redistribution of wealth ever known to man. That is what has happened in the United States, a hijacking of our country. And you just have to catch up that they're prosecuting a war against you as an enemy combatant because you are a debt on the balance sheet. You understand? In this debt-based system and debt-based economy, you are pledged as collateral against the debt, whether you know it or not. And we're just smart enough to know it and realize this is a process of elimination. That's what these patterns create. Okay? That is what these patterns of abuse and control and tactics that you only see with stay-behind armies after the military invades. But in the United States, they just decide to put the Marines on the street. And look in my side mirror, you can see the red and white cars again, a new pair, just keeping my pace in that side mirror. I don't know if you guys can see that. I'm trying to film it the best I can. But so we just got this game being played with our lives. It is a sport, but it is for your life. Another cop. So I'm just going to get behind him, hold my camera down because I don't want him to see my camera. You know. But again, guys, you see how the cars maneuver themselves. He's right in front of me, this cop. But they will roll with me all the way, coming and going, every day. I leave my place. You know, I got a Ring camera downstairs from the neighbor. And, you know, they just, you know, access the Ring camera, the police that live in my community. And, you know, there is a community-based presence, an agent and a liaison officer that works with the HOA and the rest of the community and trains them that freedom is terror and war is peace. And you see this guy over here, he is a criminal and an extremist. And that's what they say about us. Even though there's no evidence or proof, and they have redefined what that means, guys. They've redefined what it means to be an extremist. And an extremist nowadays is somebody that doesn't go along to get along in every single way possible. You're punished for it. That is communism. We are under communistic rule. And it's not a mistake in this surveillance society of lifetime surveillance that this cop is in front of me right now. You know? It's just the way it is, guys. Harassing police officers, doing community-based policing. Again, a red car going by him. Again, a white car paired with the red car. But I'm just rolling with my camera low, guys, because I don't want this officer looking back and seeing me filming him. I got my phone positioned on a stand, but I just don't want any trouble. And you know what I'm talking about, guys. They will find any reason and excuse to inject themselves in your life and interact with you because they feel you're their property. And after all, they're just here to keep you safe and save lives as they use torture to do that. And one day you're going to discover that everything that I said was 100% right on, and even then some. Every detractor, everybody that mocks and laughs and thinks it's cute and funny, you will eventually understand. Because this program is not just for me. You understand what I'm saying? It is a new system of technological policing and retroactive punishment, because they analyze everything you're doing with the surveillance and then find reasons to engage you. That's why blanket surveillance is not good. And that's why we say they need a warrant, because it is providing the police an opportunity to engage with you on new levels. And it's like creating extra market for them. An extra way to feed on us. In other words. But this cop's going slow, controlling my pace, and then I've got a car getting mad right here, burning around me. But he's going super slow. He wants me to, be slow, and he doesn't, he knows I don't want to pass him. So, still in front of me. I gotta put my camera down, guys, because he's switching lanes and I can't get over. So now he's positioned himself right beside me. Alright guys, I'm just holding my camera down because now he's keeping pace with me, going the same speed as me. There he is, guys. Behind him again. I'm just mirroring his movement because I don't want him up on me as we're flowing in this parallel way on the freeway by no mistake. I'm telling you guys, the cops, the churches, the whole system and all the businesses under the terrorism laws are a part of this. And it might not look like anything. All is plausible deniability. It's just a cop driving down the road. But we gotta understand, guys. Thanks for the escort, man. You know what I mean, guys? Thanks for the escort. Just a white car over there coming in right behind me as I pull in. But thanks for the escort, guys, this morning. Keeping them safe and saving lives. And of course, you don't have to commit a crime. You don't have to do anything wrong, because the technology will analyze you. And they have programmed the algorithms in a specific way so that if you believe in freedom, and you believe in choice, and you believe in autonomy and individuality, and you believe in thinking for yourself, you will be punished as an enemy of the state. It's been done in world history, guys, just so you know. And we're pulling in. We're just driving in. But the whole way I was being paced by red and white cars right next to me and by the police. And it's not a mistake, guys. Think about it, guys. They can watch everything in live time. Just look up the Arctic Live Time Data Center. Look it up. Arctic. ARTIC. They are watching us even in our houses. Just so you know, military grade technology mingled together with all these companies to run a police state. Love you guys. So guys, just so you know, Messenger of the Cross, Pulse Point Media, I'm just showing my lanai that I'm redoing. But for the longest time, guys, I didn't have this blind. And so imagine this blind not being there and having this big space. Thank God I got blinds on the bedroom, but this was uncovered for a long time, right? And I have neighbors that live right there, right down on the bottom floor, that spend all their time watching me, coming and going with me, no matter what time of the day I come and go, and running intercepts on me all the time, crossing my path, no matter what time of the day I leave and come and go, they come and go with me. And they switch it up. There's 3 of them, and a husband-wife couple with a daughter. And, if I go to the mailbox, they do. But you notice the plants that I put up, and I'm going to get a privacy screen just so they can't keep standing on the side of my house and looking at my house and smirking and taking pictures and doing all the things that these fool perps do under local law enforcement as tactics of abuse and control and manipulation and gaslighting, psychological warfare and abuse. But I just wanted to say, I put this dang screen up, guys, in these plants, and of course they didn't like that too much, right? They didn't like that too much, that I like privacy, right? So I should be punished for that, right, guys? I should be punished for wanting my own privacy. You know what I'm saying, guys? So, that's the bottom line. And then, of course, the intercepts increase, the bodies on you increase, because they don't like that I put this up and I'm blocking them from being able to just so easily see me leave the front door. Do you see what I'm saying? So, and just when nothing was here, it was very easy and they would just keep having the excuse and the plausible deniability to stand on the side of the house and, do all these tactics of gaslighting to engage and provoke a negative reaction, as you guys all well know. That's all these people do, these fools. But I just wanted to say that the way they responded was, and I've showed you guys this before, but over here, I have shown a police officer parking his car over there, because a police officer lives on the backside of this building right here, okay? And so what happens is you start to exercise your autonomy, independence, and privacy. And I know this screen doesn't protect me. It's just the psychological principle behind putting it up that they don't like. I know that they can still see me in my house with the Wi-Fi radar and many other platforms and neural remote monitoring and military-grade weapon systems that they have deployed to the police, that they've deployed to, the threat fusion centers to be able to run this game on American citizens of a collapse and control game done intentional, done to make you depend on these abusers that want to take you guys on a ride. So soon as we start to exercise our privacy, the very idea of privacy becomes something that enrages our enemies, and they act as if we are participating in an act of rebellion. That is what they act like. And they get mad, they huff, they puff, they stick out the lip, they roll their eyes, they shake their head, and they increase the level of intensity and bodies on you physically as a form of directed speech and behavior modification. Because the timing of the abuse is coordinated with activities you do and things you do that are good for yourself. Like, for example, this last week, I had a carpet cleaner come in and just really clean the carpets good. But you think they want that for me? Do you think they don't want me breathing toxic air all the time from carpets that are old? With the pad underneath and stuff, all nasty, but they got this new way of cleaning the carpets now with some new devices and machines, and it's never looked better. And, just when your feet are on the carpet, it's like, man, this carpet feels great, and it's a good quality carpet. I thought I might as well just have it cleaned. And so I did. And of course, it was affordable. And I found the right person. And they don't like when I'm moving that way. Do you understand what I'm saying? And they don't like when you better yourself, better your situation, support yourself, love yourself, care for yourself, provide for yourself. They don't like that. And they're in competition with you over that. Do you understand what I'm saying? They're in competition with you over your ability to take care of business, take care of yourself, because they're always competing and collapsing and controlling and hiding the abuse that they're doing to all of us. And they damage our property, they break into our house, they poison. You know, they have been known to poison you. You know what I mean? Who has the authority and the authorization and thinks that it's okay to keep people safe and save lives and use these clear-cut and dry tactics? We don't need the actual written proof. We see the testimony of it every day. You think all these millions of people that are complaining about being electrocuted in their homes and burnt and their skin burning and their face burning, you know, and the property damage and the coming and going with you, not being able to shake these people and the timed abuse, the timed crossing your path. So all I'm saying is when I put this up, the increase of contact starts to occur with the bodies on me and with the police officer who lives here just so happens to cross my path in a way more elevated, intense, crossing your path type, intercept type way as they surveil. And so the way they responded to all of these things and me, you know, cleaning my carpets and putting up blinds and making it nice and making it clean and blocking them from, you know, the main ones here that are my main perps here who also admitted on video. And I put it on my YouTube channel. The guy admits to being an informant for the police. And one of the tactics he admits to is coming in people's houses unauthorized. By the police department, it's authorized though. And they come into your house, they don't need a warrant because we're under the terrorism laws, we're under the Patriot Act. They don't need a warrant, guys. The whole country's been restructured and we have to catch up. I'm just telling you as a friend, I'm telling you as a brother, I'm telling you out of the love of my heart that this is the most horrible combination of all communistic countries put into one. That's what this is. With a technological overlay and a dictator's wet dream. That is what this is. And if we don't get our minds around the war that's being prosecuted over our resources, and we don't realize and connect the dots, you shall have nothing and be happy, they say. And in the name of sustainability, we all have to be sold junk for, an exorbitant price. Is that really what we want as citizens in the United States? Do you want blanket surveillance? How about when they retroactively go back and analyze the last couple months? Did you make any mistakes? You know, did you slip up at all? Did you do something wrong? Did you do something illegal maybe? You know what I'm saying? It's like leaving your front door open, basically. And, they already use, technologies that are wireless and the EMF spectrum to watch you in your house at all times. And a lot of these technologies that they talk about as like advancements or, in the surveillance state are just dead end roads to lead you down lesser technologies. Like the Wi-Fi radar in your router can watch you, yeah. And the police have access to the network so they can remotely access the data. Do you understand? And they do it with Ring cameras. And so the response to me, doing things to better myself, putting out videos, seeking God, praying. And when I go out on a prayer walk, guys, I'll have this officer cross my path, and he's a police officer, and his background is an auxiliary police officer. He is a trained person in community-based policing tactics and working with the community. Okay, and that is what he's here for, and he's here for his presence to be known. And I'm supposed to understand that with, items being placed in my line of sight, in my path, in a repeated way, like where it's so much, you just know, you're like, this is not normal, this repeated pattern of items and objects being placed in my line of sight and path that I just talked about the night before. And they do that to you again and again and again to mock you and punk you and let you know you are under surveillance and there's nothing you can do about it. So when we respond these ways, they just install a Ring camera downstairs so that every single time I leave and come, it is on recording, and then they can just access that network whenever they want. And I literally have a police officer living across the street from me who has a background in community-based policing. Go figure. like his training is in that kind of thing. Okay, and we've seen the grants that the community-oriented policing federal program gives to the local sheriff's office for these very things to be done to Americans, keeping you safe, saving lives. And so when we recognize we're in a spiritual war, each adjustment we make to better ourselves, to love ourselves, to care for ourselves and others and our family members or people that we love and care about, I'm always about bettering myself. I'm always on that mission my whole life. I want better for life. I don't want, to be around a bunch of brain dead, dumbed down NPC fools that get off on and rejoice in people's calamity and harm and hurt. And believe me, there is a slice of pie that God is going to give to anyone who has, like Jesus said, it's better to have a millstone tied around your necks and dropped into the depths of the sea than to offend one of these little ones that believe in me. And that is a pretty severe warning for all the enemies of God that really have chosen their side in this kind of depth that we're experiencing in this battle and warfare. And family and friends and people are scared. They're cowards. And they will never stand by your side with all this heat. As a matter of fact, they will participate in the abuse and pretend that that's not what it is and that you're mental, you're crazy, and you just don't see clearly. That's what abusers do. Now, as we're talking, white car rolling by. So it's just, they know I'm looking out the window because we're under lifetime surveillance. I don't know how many ways I can put it, but that's why it's so easy for them to know when you leave your house and time when you leave, and then have your neighbors come out with red shirts and walk and keep pace with you to your car and get in their car and open their door at the same time and start their car at the same time and wait for you to drive and then drive and follow you. And it's the same every time. And you make a right turn, they make a right turn. You make another right turn, they make another right turn. You make a third right turn and they're still making a right turn. I can't tell you how many people I've had to ditch and drop because of my spider senses being off the charts and just being able to predict. Because these psychopaths and narcissists are very predictive. They're always going to go after that which appears to be the vulnerability. So knowing that, remember that. And there's decoys that you can give, to test the waters to see, are these people for me or are they against me? And the actions don't lie. And once they act against me, it's over for them in terms of being in a relationship or a connection to me. You perp and you lie, you cheat, you steal, you serve the devil. And that is, making me have to take the stance that I'm having to take to speak out against these abuses that are hidden in our society, another white car, that are hidden in our society, but right in plain sight. So it's all in plain sight and all done to disturb the living daylights out of people and radicalize society, because the torture that they're using creates hostility and anger, obviously, and creates frustration as we are made to watch our family members under mind control being ruined, being darkened, being basically destroyed in front of our face, and doing all these self-harming things that are contradictory to survival and self-love and care. I'm just saying. You know what I mean? These people are self-mutilators, is what they are, and they drag us under their mess because they hate life and hate God and drag us under their mess. They don't want to face themselves in the darkness and do the work. That's the main problem that I see with these people. And so they become hardened and they become disassociative and they no longer can take responsibility or accountability for their actions. Family and friends are participating in our abuse. Hardcore, and for years. They have made us out to be a criminal to family, to friends, and then seek to try to bring that about through orchestrated, coordinated, scripted events run by the police, managed by the police. They nominated us and submerged us in this battle from the time we were very young. We were always thrown under the bus and put in the middle, and it was because in the end, we discovered that this person was so insecure that they couldn't share any attention, and it was to the sacrifice of our standing, our reputation, our walk with God even. This person thinks, in your life that they are God and that you do what they say, even if God shows them a million times. No, I've called this person and here's the evidence time and again. Everything I warned my family about came to pass, and yet they still can't come back and say, you were right. You see, you're never going to get that from these people. They're never going to humble themselves and admit, wow, God must be in you because everything you told me came to pass before it came to pass. And that could only be God. So I don't take credit myself, but the warnings, the burdens, the unction of the Holy Spirit, that burden, that groaning inside, that leads you into this fellowship with Christ. And out from that, a word of knowledge comes and is just imparted into our spirits. And they're wondering, how does he know? How does he understand what we've done to him? And they try to hide behind gift giving and all these other things as a way to deflect and distort having to truly answer for what they've done and having to truly face the consequences that they've passed along onto us to bear. We have been the scapegoat in the most ridiculous, long-term suffering way. You understand what I'm saying? We didn't even know we were being competed against. That's the whole point. We had no idea, and we had no idea that family and friends were insisting that we were crazy and mentally ill and dangerous and needed to be watched all the time, and helped and enrolled us, basically, and brought the attention on us in this negative way as a way to manage and control us and suffocate our standing, because they knew one day their lies are going to come crashing down to the ground. And that is what God has all of us in the process of. One day, God is going to show the truth and strip these people of their cloak and their ability to masquerade, their ability to pretend and act and perform only. And for many of us, we have discovered our own family members, our own mother is participating in this kind of reprobate thinking. And it is reprobate. It is evil. It is corrupt. It's not just mental illness, guys. These people like hurting others and even family and friends, and they're so competitive and so insecure that they will sacrifice everything and anything, and especially things in your life, because that gets the bad reactions, because they go after the things you're attached to and you love and that are supporting you. And when they do that and hide the fact that they're doing that for 25 years, someone needs to answer for it eventually. And that's why I pray every day. That's why I do these videos every day, because I'm here because this is my life experience, not because I'm talking about a topic and relegate this whole gang stalking to just a topic or a trend, or selling a book or solutions. You know what I'm saying? I just say God is the solution, at least in my life, and the constant interaction with him. That is what has kept me. That is what has delivered me supernaturally. That is what has revealed my true identity and given me spiritual gifts that they can't control. And that is why, guys, we are all in this battle together in certain ways, and the tactics are so similar in certain ways because, there are so many concerns that our own government expresses over behavior. A scientific dictatorship run by psychologists, basically, customizing abuse to Americans, customizing abuse. And it is intercepts, it is directed speech, it is non-touch torture tactics of abuse and control, it is wireless electrocution, it is EMF waves and microwaves and the Frey effect and the auditory hearing effect directly to the brain, the nervous system, and the body being attacked to the point of shutdown. And that is why I'm so adamant every day and speak the truth no matter what, because we do not have a future, guys, unless we come to our senses and understand the serious nature behind blanket surveillance and why it's so wrong. And remember, guys, I did that video, and if you've heard it before, that main excuse that these abusers say, which is, if you got nothing to hide, then why are you so against surveillance? Don't you want to stop terrorists and religious extremists? What's wrong with you? And it's like, no, dude, you don't understand. That's like the most simplistic mentality and infantile, and it shows the infantile nature. It shows the lack of development. It shows the black and white thinking. It shows that you're not understanding the truth of the dangers. And to be a part of and create a society that is like this and think that you're just going to do it to other people's family members, and that, that with the measure you use, it is measured back to you. A good measure pressed down, shaken together, and running over, men will repay it into your laps. I mean, that is a spiritual law of the universe. And yet these intelligent experts and heroes and saviors don't get that, do they? They don't get that, guys. So I'm here once again, Messenger of the Cross, Pulse Point Media. I love every single one of you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you for subscribing. We're on this journey together. We are exposing the truth behind what is going on in America. And don't think for one second that these crises aren't manufactured to dominate and control and bring in their pre-packaged solution. I want you to understand the Hegelian dialectic. Problem, reaction, solution is the method. They create the problem. You beg them for the solution, and then they give you the solution that they already had pre-packaged to give you. And it's just this foregone conclusion, and it's always the same. We need more power, we need more surveillance, we need more military equipment to monitor these threats. And everybody is deemed a threat in this open-ended, ongoing war of attrition against the civilians, against shadowy enemies that could be anyone and anywhere. And that is what we have to speak against, guys, is the fact that, under terrorism, it just is this blanket excuse. And, we've never really seen any real terrorism really in America. Really, a lot of these things are just scripted events that the media does just to get you on board with the agenda and make you afraid and go along with what they want. You know what I'm saying? And what they want is absurd. It is full spectrum dominance to the cellular level, to the brainwave level, to the nervous system level, to the cellular level, to the DNA level, guys. That is what we are exposing. And all these other technologies are just lesser technologies. Even the flock cameras are really, a lesser technology than what I'm talking about here and what I'm exposing and revealing here on this channel. But we cover all those other technologies because they piggyback. If one fails, they go to the other one. And if that one fails, they go to another one. Because they have purposed in their hearts to carry out this anti-human agenda no matter what we say. Do you understand? They don't care about you, what you say, what you think. You are not essential. And they've even told you that. They've even told you you're not essential. So it's time to stop going along to get along. It's time to stop burying our heads in the sand. It's time to make every right choice every day, not to participate in their food, not to participate at the local grocery stores, we got to get more determined in our hearts with more resolve to understand the level of crisis and the level of emergency that we truly are in. And it has been manufactured. It has been intentional, deliberate breakdown and collapse using our own military against citizens under the terror laws and under the pretense of keeping people safe. But keeping people safe means abusing you with military-grade tactics and technologies. That's how they keep things safe, and they will attack you over and over to try to modify behavior using torture, using hostility, using a breakdown game, using a battle over your resources. All they have to do is compete over your resources and indirectly affect you that way in your standing and bring a breakdown on you and make you bear up underneath the layers of broken that they produce every time you get that stability or a car or transportation or a home. They're always maneuvering themselves, positioning themselves around your home to try to make it uncomfortable, to try to make it hostile, to try to make it so ugly that you just want to flee and run from one place to another. I mean, and years of just living out of a bag, guys, because of how intense the pressure and the exclusion is, and the rejection, and the complete and total isolation. And they isolate you so much that, you start to feel the pain in your heart of the loneliness of time passing you by. And you're like, if it wasn't for these people blocking and stopping and getting in the way in an intentional, mass level way, a hive-minded way, things would have taken their natural course. And many of us, we've made good decisions and they have competed over the results and then stolen the results from us, man. And then they try to say we're mentally ill and crazy and liars and the ones that are the narcissists even. And that's what they do. I love you guys. God bless you guys. I'm out. Peace out. And guys, just the reality of blanket surveillance, it's like such a criminal thing to do to civilians. And there's a malevolent force behind it. Always in world history. In world history, you can look at all these communist countries, they disarm the people, and then next thing you know, there's like mass death. And that is on record. That is history. And, we live in this strange reality where maybe history can even change or be covered up and manipulated by these same controllers and rulers. And we got to start waking up to the fact that we've been lied to. And we've got to accept that from the time we were in kindergarten, they programmed us, monitored us, watched us, and followed us our whole lives. We have to come to terms with that and realize that it's the truth. And we have been enrolled in this game since the time we were young kids, before we even knew how to, war a good warfare, with the truth and with peace and with surrender and with humility. These are all qualities that the enemy can't touch. And that's what frustrates them so much, because they can't grab onto anything in us. If you're living right and, your conscience is clear every day, every night, and you are careful to keep in step with the Spirit of God because of the burden that is on you, it really is amazing when God steps in and just shows you how much he loves you. I can't even begin to even express the shock to my system. How could you love me this much? I mean, why didn't you love my family members this much? What is the purpose of the deliverance when I should have been hemmed in and hemmed up and should have not even been here? I'm on borrowed time. I'm literally on borrowed time, guys. In the name of Jesus. But this blanket surveillance, guys, this real-time, live-time surveillance that I've been talking about, I've been talking about it for 20 years in different platforms and different various, forums. But, real-time surveillance doesn't just watch people. There is a psychological effect that happens, this chilling effect that happens, and it changes people. It changes people. It destroys social life. I mean, the core negative effects aren't abstract. They show up in psychology, emotion, behavior, and even the way institutions operate when humans are the ones, monitoring all the feeds. And human nature always gravitates towards, superiority, domination, power, and control. It's this infantile lack of spiritual development that leaders have, because they think that being a true leader is inverting reality for their master, the devil, and for their master, these fallen angels, that they do all these rituals to call and evoke. But there's a concise takeaway from all of this. Blanket surveillance, it really always produces fear and conformity and mistrust and institutional overreach. And that is what we're seeing before it even gets started, really. You know what I'm saying? Even with other lesser levels of technology that they try to pretend are so advanced, like the flock camera system and everything else. And really, they can monitor all of us without chipping us, without having devices all around us, with electromagnetic waves and energy, and weapons platforms that DARPA and other military contractors developed and have sold, and you can follow the money and you can see all the presentations and everything else. They don't hide what they're doing. They hide it in plain sight, yeah, but they don't hide what they're doing. And so we're going to have this institutional overreach and selective enforcement, selective policing based on data analysis, based on AI deciding whether or not, you're a criminal or not. And then based on standards that these communists and these, technological dictators and breakaway society want for all of us. The IMF and World Bank and the International Monetary Fund want for America. And they hate America. They hate the freedom, that the idea of it. It wasn't that America actually was a free country or even a country to begin with. It's just a corporation. But that's why it's even more urgent to understand that you have been considered a debt on the balance sheet. And the way they eliminate the debt is eliminating you off that balance sheet. You understand what I'm saying? Because you are just a commodity. You are just a product. And that's what they've made of human beings and human souls as they trade us on the stock market and live time stream our torture for everybody to bet on who's going to survive or not in this Hunger Games type game that they're playing with us. And it's not because people are weak that there's so much conformity and mistrust, but it's basically a fundamental thing of human nature, that human nature reacts predictably when watched. And that is the problem that I have with it. Because everybody acts and performs and cleans up their act and presents something false in order to survive the punishment and damage and severe consequences. And in communist countries, they just, like with these flock cameras, our government just works together with these corporations and they just decide it's a felony if you cut it down and you're going to go to prison for 10, 20 years. That's the severity, the cruelty, the punishment, the fear. You see what I'm saying? So they make it very, very severe in consequence. And, in Europe, they just come to your house, the police show up, you said something online, you're going to jail. You know what I'm saying? There's no freedom of speech. There's no autonomy or independence. There's just this hive-minded Borg putting its thumb upon us and forcing us to be agreeable to it by tactics of abuse and control and by fear. And we're not afraid. God hasn't not given us a spirit of fear, but of power, of love, and a sound mind, because of what God has done. But, guys, there's such a heightened anxiety that we all experience. And there is this deliberate manufacturing to try to create hypervigilance in you. And that is what we have to be alone for so much, is because God knows this and God knows what is going on with our bodies because of it. And so he gives us rest. He gives us peace. He gets us alone. He speaks to us. He talks to us. He woos us from the jaws of distress in our isolation. And we start to become strengthened and start to realize that there's something else here. And even though I can be in prison and with chains on, I'm free. And that is the mentality that all through world history, these governments and these corporations have been afraid of. You recognizing that these crises have never been accidents. They're not accidents. They are done deliberately to socially engineer society. So when people know they're being watched or might be watched, the brain actually shifts into a low-grade threat state. And just doing that to us is criminal. Just doing that alone to us, guys, is criminal. Don't you think? Putting your body in a state of elevated cortisol all the time, you'll have difficulty relaxing, difficulty staying asleep. They use the sleep deprivation torture on you, put more bodies on you when you're tired. You'll start overthinking normal actions and get all tripped up with the voice to skull arguing, like as if you're arguing with yourself in your own voice, but it's synthetic. It's not you. They impersonate you digitally through a wave being broadcast to the brain in these platforms that are over whole cities. And we heard that even from the company CIS and the whistleblower that came from that company. And I don't really know him. I just know that he claims to be a target after revealing some of the technologies he was working on. And I don't know the factual evidence of that. I haven't looked into that, but I just play because I hear the truth and I take the truth out of all of these things. And of course, nobody's perfect, but at the same time, I have standards. And it's like, I know the difference between a real target and somebody that's just doing a topic or talking about a topic. You know, most of these YouTube channels, they're not even going through this. It might be narcissistic abuse, yeah. But this is a whole new elevated, escalated level where all the institutions get involved in eliminating you and then saying you're crazy and mentally ill and did it to yourself as they torture you. As they torture you and torture you and torture you with no end in sight. And what do I mean by the torture? Well, you've heard me say it before. All the tactics of frustration and gaslighting and control and abuse. All the triangulation, all the slander campaigns, the smear campaigns are done again and again and again to a sickening, suffocating degree so that it alters the course of your life. You're going to have difficulty relaxing. You know, you'll be overthinking normal reactions, healthy reactions to clear cut and dry psychological warfare and abuse done, color sensitizing, directed speech, gaslighting, street theater, scripted hostility around you. And it's too much frequency and rate for it to be an accident or a coincidence. You see, mathematically, it defies the law of probability. And of course, the quantum sensing that they use and all these quantum, technologies, they are able to do things that you would never even believe. It's like they've gotten control of the ether or, the God particle and can create matter, right in front of the target. It's just like I say that because, and I'm just, messing around when I say that, but it's like not far from the truth. And I'm sure that they probably already got control of the ether and the electrical, resonance of the earth, the electrical resonance of our bodies have been mapped. You know what I mean? And remember the Obama brain mapping program, just go look it up. So there's a lot of wrestling with ourselves. And then we discover this is synthetic. This is not coming from me, even though it sounds like my voice. And then when you discover that, then they'll have conversations with the Frey effect so that you overhear it and it's always negative and disgusting and abusive to get you to internalize and, not be able to read your active memory. They don't want you to be able to read your active memory. And as they plant thoughts and ideas in all kinds of different demonic things that are really evil. And there's this sense in a surveillance society that we're being judged or evaluated all the time. You want to live like that? What's the problem with surveillance if you got nothing to hide? It isn't paranoia, guys. It's a well-documented psychological response to people observing us. And they're not good people observing us, guys. They have no good intent with watching us. It's not to keep you safe and save lives. You got to get past that. You got to realize the content. You can't just keep listening to their words and being hypnotized on a surface level. You got to look into it. You got to start doing the research as best as you can and realize that there are potentials that you've been not aware of and that it's not us who are ahead of the curve telling you and warning you years in advance that has the mental problem. You see, God used us in advance to show you and to confirm to you his presence, his love, his care. And there's all this loss in a society of spontaneity and creativity when surveillance pushes people toward safe, predictable behavior. There's less experimentation, less dissent, less individuality, and more self-censorship. They want you to do it to yourselves, guys. This is what I mean about creating an environment of punishments and rewards and creating something inclusive and punishing those that don't go along with it. That's the direction we're going. So creativity requires freedom from scrutiny, doesn't it? I mean, that's what I thought. And, cameras everywhere just kill that freedom. And they could say it's to keep us safe and save lives, but at what cost? What are they going to sacrifice? They're going to sacrifice our human freedom, our autonomy, our ability to think for ourselves, our ability to have our own volition, our own choice. That is what the war is over, and changing you from being human to human 2.0. And the only reason they're doing it is to manage you better. That's what they're using the technology to do, to make you more manageable, dumbed down, and ruined. And look at the history. I mean, the fluoride in the water, that countries like in Germany, they use fluoride in the water in order to create a docile population, and it's in the water supply in America. And we've said that for over like 20 years. There's an erosion of trust, guys, and we're seeing it every day in the system, in the people around us, in our family members. People just start to begin to assume, everyone is a potential threat. And that is the do-gooders that I talk about, those that go to local 501c3 churches that I call cults, because the state owns it. The state controls the teachings, and they receive federal subsidy money from the federal government to follow the faith-based initiatives and the laws that were passed to merge the church and the state. And I was complaining about it years ago under the 501c3 banner. That is what they hide. They hide the fact that the federal government and the IRS control these local churches, and you will be punished and lose your nonprofit status if you start to speak the truth. And so no church in America is good anymore. And the church, as I know it, is underground, just like it was in communist China with Hudson Taylor. It's underground. And there are real believers out there. But trust collapses, guys, when surveillance replaces a sense of community. And that is what they're doing. They're isolating all of us, getting us dependent on all this dumb technology that we have no need of. It was sold to us as a convenience. It was sold to us that it would make life better. And all it's done is dumbed us down and brain deadened us with the blue light coming from these computer screens that we have to stare at all day. I don't even want it in my life. The only reason I have a computer is to do these videos. Like, I could care less. You know what I mean? I want to live based on nature, based off the land, based off of the food I can grow, based off of, this, idea of always self-betterment, self-reliance in that way, because we are too dependent on abusers. And that is why, and we're all discovering it right now. We're all discovering, I've known for a long time. I mean, because I was conditioned from my narcissistic, covert, malignant, and sadistic mother to watch out for these people. I didn't realize until I healed that was, the direction mainly that the world was going. And that is because these people in our families have exposed themselves night and day while we were praying and calling upon God and, learning and growing and bettering ourselves and choosing what was right and keeping our conscience good. Well, they didn't like that because they weren't doing that. And they were just giving themselves over to whatever the environment was, to whatever, the circumstances was. And they're just, flying by the seat of their pants type people. But God has given us a conviction. God has opened us up to the reality of the way this material world really works and who's really in control of it and what's really going on. And it's no mistake, guys. They think you're useless eaters, and they even tell you that. And then they pretend like they're on different teams fighting each other. We got to break the conditioning and the theater that is played over all of us, because the United States has been restructured under emergency executive orders, and we are a dictatorship under those emergency orders controlled by a roundtable group of unelected people that decide the fate of all of us through the Council on Foreign Relations and many other things. And we've heard other men of God in the past talk about this and bring this up. All these centers that they use, and a lot of different military bases in this shadow government and parallel government that's been set up under the idea of crisis management. Because in the emergency, they can suspend your rights. That's what they've done. They haven't told you that, but they have restructured the United States. So the Patriot Act is the new Constitution, and they use the name Patriot because it's the most anti-patriot thing you've ever heard. And I'm not political. I'm not involved in any activist group or anything like that. I mean, they probably want to slander me and say that I'm a danger, and I do that, but that's not what I do. I'm a Christian, and, I'm calling people out of the world. I am not here to help or fix the world, okay? I'm not on some crusade, is all I'm saying. I just want people to know the Jesus that I've met. That's all I'm saying, really, bottom line. So, guys, there's this just Chronic stress and emotional fatigue being watched is really emotionally draining, as you well know, as you're discovering. For all of us that are targeted individuals, we're watched 24/7. We can't even leave our house without people running into us, crossing our path, blocking us, stopping us, getting in our way, saying stupid stuff to us to provoke a reaction. It's so childish and so obvious. You know, the way these people are desperate for attention. It's not hard to understand. And over time, it produces irritability, and they know it. It produces depression, and they know it. That's why they do it. A sense of helplessness. They want to break your will, you understand? And we've had other people like John Holder talk about, just brainwashing the American people to take guns, and that we got to really break their will. I mean, these leaders have said it all. So, and this is all on record, and you can just Google it and pull up the quotes by keyword search. So there's this learned helplessness that I'm breaking every day. And this is the healing that God is giving me from my past, from the narcissistic family of the covert, malignant narcissist who's always trying to sacrifice you and sacrifice what you're standing on. So that it's like a form of Munchausen syndrome, really, that I'm talking about, where your parent projects on you like illness and sickness and things that are not part of reality or connected to reality in any way or have any evidence. It was just the provoking all the time that they can, and the bad reactions created from the abuse being done that became their evidence, and they ran with it. You know what I'm saying? It ruined a large portion of our lives. We were isolated for many, many years. Family would never call. Distant relatives would never call. Nobody cared about us. Nobody called us. Nobody was concerned about us. And later we found out that most of our family members had actually, in fact, weren't neutral. They weren't neutral, but engaged in participating in the abuse. Even damage to property, and then saying you did it. To try to run with a story that you're dangerous, you're abusive, you're, a criminal, and to try to justify the abuse rather than say, wow, I've really messed up thinking that you were somebody that you weren't. Recognize the delusion and the disconnect, family. That's all I'm saying. And this is the same psychological mechanism seen in abusive relationships and just in authoritarian environments. It's that learned helplessness. And guys, you learn it because they lie only. And that creates this sense of helplessness when you never can have the proper information. You never have the proper information, and that information is being interfered with all the time and hidden and blocked and stopped. So you can't make the right choices because these people are over you, controlling as a gatekeeper what you see, what you hear, because they think they're God. They want to manage your reality. They want to manage your perception so that they can use you only in a sacrifice to stimulate their fantasy and ego that they're a hero and a savior, and that they're a good parent, or they're in control, or they're superior. It's childish, the level of reasoning that exists in family members. It is really a shame, and I take pity on them all, because I see the infantile nature and the lack of development and reasoning and thinking and emotion. And I just look at my family in pity for all the things that they've done that they thought were approved and okay, really killing us and thinking they're offering a service to God even. That's how delusional family has been. And, you just have to come and tell a narcissist, hey, you can be a hero and a savior. Do you want to save the day from the terrorists that are everywhere? Your son is a religious extremist and dangerous and violent. And, he hurts children. And, all these things that they say about all of us, the slander and smear campaigns are always so over the top sensational. And, to validate themselves, they'll even arrest you, detain you, put you in jail, take a mugshot of you, and release you with no charges just so that they can put the whole thing on the internet and spread it far and wide to the four winds. How many times has that been done to me? You just get the cops showing up at your house, knocking on your door, taking you out at midnight. They wait till it's late, till they know you're asleep. Then they come in your house, flash the flashlight in your eyes in military gear, and like a SWAT team, take you outside for no cause, no reason, won't tell you the reason, put you in the cop car, take you away. You get to the jail, then they chain you to the wall in a torture position like they did to me. No crime, no nothing, no evidence, no proof, no nothing, but just selective enforcement and punishment and behavior modification. and experimentation on the American people. There is no cause for it. And they do this again and again in a repeated way so the neighbors see. And then they can get the neighbors to believe that you're a danger and a threat. And then they spread that false mugshot with no charges, no conviction. They just release you. They'll arrest you and release you to break you all the time and to chain you to the wall for a couple hours. Like they did to me in Aurora, Colorado. They chained me to the wall because I was speaking the truth. And they say, you need to shut up. There's somebody that's really high up that doesn't like you, the officer said when I was rolling in the cop car with my handcuffs on. No cause, no reason. But look, they can spread the lies. They can spread the slander. They can go around telling people that you're this, you're that. But in the end, the truth comes out. The lip of truth shall be established forever. A lying tongue is but for a moment. And that is the bottom line. And I trusted that and got through that and realized God is the one that exposes my enemies. He's the one that discovers the will of those that hate me. And his hand uncovers it before they can even really do the damage that they intend to do. And he will move us about. And sometimes it felt like I was a ping pong ball going from one place to another. But I trusted the Lord and I said, Lord, I'm giving my life to you. You maneuver me. You take me around. I have no attachments but you. And I just love you. And I don't care what they take from me, what they do to me. But I just want to experience you. That's what I'm living for. That's really what I'm living for, because deep down inside, I've suffered so much my whole life and realized from a very young age, confronted with death type situations and scenarios, and realize that there's a value for life here. And many of us are coming to understand just how much God has put into us and how his favor has been with us for his purpose, and his calling on us is really for his purpose. So we just have really been okay with, letting go of our dreams, our goals, our wants, and our desires to apprehend his dream, his goal, his want, and his desire. And so when we leave this little center of ourselves, we come into this vast supply of the riches of Jesus, who imparts to us moment to moment everything we need, and everything we need is him. It's not a thing that God is giving you as much as it's him giving you himself to live by. So really, there's all this learned helplessness, like I said, and the alienation and social withdrawal happens nonstop in countries that are surveilled. I mean, people avoid public spaces. Think about how much you've curtailed your behavior. You avoid expressing yourself. You avoid forming new relationships because you're paranoid about everybody, even though that most people are under this mind control and dangerous. But everything starts to feel like a big risk in a communist country under surveillance, live time. So that's how they position themselves before you even get there, because they're literally analyzing and watching everything and have saturated this world with electromagnetic frequencies. That's why all of us, and we see this health stuff, which they've made me suffer greatly physically with different damage to my body from this torture. And, it's just, guys, I'm just thankful to just be standing, and I'm thankful to God for his attention and him considering me in my lowliest state when my enemies were too strong for me and too many. And God worked in my life to show me his presence and protection, and just how he can hide you in the secret place of the Most High right in front of your enemies, and they won't even recognize. He hides our value. He hides all these things for a reason, and especially from family members, because we were their test. I mean, really. So what happens when humans get used to running real-time surveillance centers and start getting addicted to the power behind it? And most people ignore this. The watchers are human too, most of them, with all the flaws that come with human nature. So, bias becomes amplified by technology, right? Humans bring, racial bias, class bias, confirmation bias, personal grudges, political motivations. You understand? Why is surveillance blanket surveillance wrong if you have nothing to hide? It's because of this. I mean, when these biases operate through surveillance systems, mistakes become systemic and automated even. And that is what we are seeing, guys. Basically, even in the medical system, it's all being given over to a machine to decide whether you live or die. It's all being given over to a machine to decide whether you get to go on or not, whether you get a treatment or not. Are you obedient? Are you a good little slave? Are you obedient? Are you afraid and hysterical? And will do anything and sacrifice anything just to save your own skin? What infantile selfishness. But power corrupts, especially when, unobserved by most people. Surveillance operates often, like I was saying before, surveillance operators often have no oversight, no accountability, no transparency, man. They won't even let us know who owns the flock cameras, for example. And they make it a matter of national security. It's for safety always that you can't ever be on the same playing field. It's always these excuses and rationalizations and justifications to be superior, to be elevated, to have more information than us, and to use that information, actionable information, to target U.S. citizens. That's what they're doing with it. So it creates a psychological environment where misuse feels easy and justified. And that's these cops, how many of them have been busted, using the lifetime surveillance centers to monitor ex-wives. It's been in the news over and over. So desensitization and moral disengagement start to happen when we're all under surveillance, and watching people all day turns, humans into detached observers, really. It's a dissociative disorder that's created. And they begin to see citizens as data points, suspects, patterns, and potential threats. And we hear the local sheriff's office talking like this, and then justifying the tactics used and the domination power that is available to them with these tools. This godhood power should never be rationalized ever. We don't care if you're trying to keep us safe. We don't want to be kept safe by you, because we realize what you really are. We know what you really are. And it's the psychopath, the covert and malignant narcissists that are set up in a society where, they become the yes men and have no moral compass. And that is why the propaganda in America is so geared towards devaluation of the moral compass we have, because people that are immoral have way easier time being yes men, don't they? Way easier for them to give in and just to go along to get along, isn't it? That's what we've seen in our lives. This overconfidence that's taking place in flawed technology. And how many mistakes does it make where, the flock cameras just pull over somebody that, the cops pull over somebody that's flagged and for a stolen vehicle, but it's not a stolen vehicle, because these technologies make mistakes. And this is part of the tyranny. That's why they know that it makes mistakes. They don't care. That is part of the chaos, the order out of chaos philosophy. So false positives become arrests, guys. Glitches become probable cause. You understand what I'm saying? Human judgment gets replaced by a machine error. And this is what we're being subject to even in the medical system with this, telehealth, AI, remote, and wireless frequency-based medical system that they want to have, this telehealth system, updating our DNA remotely. You know what I'm saying? And all the frequencies of pretty much everything have been mapped and patterned and are monitored by AI. You know what I'm saying? And an AI that they have that's way more sophisticated and has been around for a long, long time. They got the AI controlling the drones and every other thing. It's a big network like Skynet. That is basically a true story. Terminator. It's Skynet. And they are moving in this direction and have been for a long time. And it's a merger of biology and technology, and the military commandos will tell you that as they, nominate themselves in these super soldier programs of gene therapy. Okay. But don't worry. Klaus Schwab says that the obstacle of realizing the immoral ethics problem behind transforming people from human to whatever, this is, with it's, a merger with technology, a merger with machines. It's like biology merging with technology. And waves are used to animate in a bidirectional stream of data that's coming back and forth to the brain. They don't need your cell phone. They communicate directly to the brain. And there is data that is on a carrier wave that gets unpacked by the brain. And they have decoded our brain waves. This has been researched and done. And then they just say, we're here to keep you safe and save lives, as they do it in plain sight and roll it out on all of us for our safety and for our good. And this is the sacrifice we have to make in a world that's so filled with crises. I mean, don't you want to save the community? Don't you want to, help capture terrorists? But remember, guys, I said that it's a shadowy, open-ended, ongoing enemy that could be anywhere, anyone, and that gives them an endless war that they can make money off of. An endless war. Do you see what I'm saying? So mission creep is what I'm talking about and opposing right now. The surveillance centers rarely stay limited to safety. Human nature pushes toward expanding the monitoring, lowering the threshold, justifying new intrusions and creating new intrusions and interactions. And this gives them the excuse to do so, all this data, and using data for unrelated purposes like stalking you and torturing you and harming you and keeping you from work and keeping you from taking care of yourself and driving you out of your home, driving you out of your car, and all the calamities just all suddenly come on you all at the same time with like an intensity that is just so ridiculous. It's an intensity where it's clear that it's being done deliberately. And that's the arrogance coming through. These people that think they have above the law status and that nothing's going to be done in the end, that God is just sitting up there not seeing all of it. But, I think there was a verse in Ecclesiastes that talks about just because a man isn't judged speedily, the hearts of the sons of men are fully set in them to do wickedness because they don't think that God sees it. But God sees it, and he's proven that he sees it and continues to punish those that rise up against him and his purpose and his calling. You see what I'm saying? Because he's got the bigger picture. You understand? So the deeper problem is that surveillance like this, guys, that I'm talking about, it changes society itself in the most fundamental levels. That's why we shouldn't be, accepting any of this. Blanket surveillance is dangerous, and it creates a culture where people behave like suspects all the time, and authorities behave like overseers. Mistakes become criminal records. Privacy becomes suspicion. And I've said it all before, freedom becomes really conditional. And it's not just a technology problem, it's a human problem, a human nature problem amplified by the technology. So I guess I can end by saying a question worth reflecting on for all of us is, if you want to go deeper and you want to understand more about how surveillance historically leads to authoritarian drift and how communities psychologically recover when surveillance is reduced, I think it's really important to understand that this is having an effect on all of us. And just imagine, those of you who don't think you're targeted, you haven't come to recognize the tactics that are plausible, deniable, and present, hidden right in front of your face. And so I love you guys, and God bless.